we were drinking. We were going on benders like all weekend. We would just do coke and drink and keep going for weekends at a time. Don't know how we were getting to work and stuff, but then it got to the point where I was taking like secret shots.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Taylor?
Yeah.
Ballinger.
Ballinger.
Oh, dang.
So close. That's closer than a lot of people get. So, yeah, I get Ballinger a lot.
I had a friend named Tyler. His nickname was Ballsy.
Oh.
Yeah. So your last name, if you were a guy, would be
Ballsy, yeah.
your nickname would be Ballsy too. You know what I'm saying?
I like
But
that.
your friend's name was Tyler?
Tyler Ball something.
Zach?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh my Lord.
Way to kick it off just
Yeah.
solid, Shane. Well done.
Wow. Did I do that? I'm sorry.
Taylor,
You're really down in that coffee.
I know I don't know what it was.
Taylor, welcome to the Hopeaholics
Yeah. Welcome,
podcast.
man. Thank you for coming.
Thank
This
you.
is how we do it.
All the way
Yeah.
from PA.
All the way from PA.
All the way.
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. She's
I am.
enjoying the weather.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful here. Yeah. In Pennsylvania, it was like so cold and muggy. And I usually kind of skip down to Houston where my family lives for the winter to get away from the cold. But I ended up going back too early.
When you say family, mom and dad or?
No, my grandparents. And some of my aunts and uncles.
Right.
and a couple of my cousins are down
Right.
there.
So mom and dad were not around. It was a rough childhood. Let's go to there.
Yeah. So this
Damn,
will be
getting right.
just right into it,
Jeez.
which is funny because this is, one of the topics that I really haven't talked to a lot of people about. I think just from the fear of them hearing it at some point. But yeah, when I was growing up, it didn't feel like a rough childhood. It felt like I was having a really fun time. But looking back as an adult and kind of reflecting on it, we did have it rough. And it makes a lot of sense now why like certain teachers would come up to us and be like, hey, are you okay? And my sister and I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. We'd be like, why are you talking to me? Like, yeah, I'm fine. Go away. But now like looking back, I'm like, oh, that makes sense why people were like, are you okay? My parents got divorced when we were, I think like 7 and 9 years old. So pretty early on. And ever since that, it like before that they were screaming and fighting and yelling and throwing things at each other. It was a good thing that they got divorced, but they never talked to each other again after that.
Oh, wow.
Not a single word. We tried the whole go back and forth between the houses for like 1 week. And I think my dad was like 5 minutes late to dropping us off one day, and she called the cops. And like my sister and I, even at that age, were like, we're not doing this at all. So after that, they never really like checked in with each other at where we were. My mom's new husband, my stepfather, who was my stepfather until he passed away recently, he moved in like 2 weeks after my dad moved out.
Oh, damn.
And so we were too young to really understand what that was, but we were still like, okay, this is
Fast.
Sure.
this, like, we obviously took a while to warm up to him.
Fuck yeah.
But then it was kind of a free for all after that because my dad lived so I grew up in Reno, Nevada. So we moved right before the divorce. We moved to Reno, Nevada. We moved up into the mountains to a very small town called Virginia City, Nevada. And it's this small Western historic ghost town, literally a Western town. Very small town, but he lived in town. My stepdad and my mom worked in Carson City, but they would go off on vacations. They would sometimes bring us, but from that point forward, it was there. We just didn't have a lot of parenting from that point forward. My dad was always working like odd jobs. He was a singer at one of the hotels. He would work on ranches. He would, stay at those ranches or go on cattle drives, and he'd go out drinking, I believe. He had, a new girlfriend here and there. But ever since the divorce, they just never checked in with each other and never really checked in where we were. And so from that point forward, it was kind of like we were just kind of raising ourselves. And then we would have like parental figures here and there throughout. But like, it was just kind of, figure it out on your own. Like I remember being at my dad's apartment and we just like didn't have food. We would be like trying to find food. There'd be like crackers and mustard and we'd eat that. Or I worked in the school kitchen in middle school and high school, and I'd just like steal muffins. And I hope the principal's not watching this someday, but we'd just like steal food and bring it home and we'd eat that. Or I'd get a free lunch at school being there. But then like my sister and my mom got into a fight and she went and stayed at a boyfriend's house for a year. And I lived with my friend Nellie for 6 months. And, we were just always kind of like bouncing around. So my sister's probably the one person that knows exactly what my childhood was like, but we also still kind of didn't live the same one, if that makes sense, because we were both kind of bouncing around to people's houses.
Who's older?
Her sister.
She is.
Okay. I wanted to get that correct in my head.
Yeah. And you would, if you met her, she's definitely the older one. She's way more organized, way smarter, all the things. So, yeah. What was the question?
This is very interesting. You're telling us your story about your parents and how they were not there. They were absentee parents.
Yeah.
And you guys raised yourself, and now you're older. Everyone is judged. My mom tells me that all the time. When you're a parent, I don't care if you're a friend, you're a parent, you're judged. That's life. Now you're older, you're judging. When I judge my parents, how were they? Did they do this? This is how I treat them today. These are relationships. So it's a sad situation, but good for you.
Yeah.
And coming through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think about it often, and I think that this season of life, I really am going through figuring out how to navigate the past. I had some other hardships throughout my like teens and 20s that kind of pushed off digging into the childhood trauma. I don't really like the word trauma just because it didn't feel traumatic at the time. But it's hard to talk about it just because you don't ever want to like intentionally hurt your parents. At the time they probably were doing the best that they could with what they had, and obviously they were going through a divorce and didn't have parents that really allowed them to speak about their mental health and what they were going through. And it was probably like, nope, you better just stay with each other, because that was kind of around the time where now it feels like divorce is a lot more prevalent than our grandparents' time or even our parents. So obviously they were dealing with a lot of their own mental health stuff, but it doesn't negate the fact that
you guys were kids.
We ended up growing up without the parental figures. We didn't have family dinners. We didn't get the life lessons. They didn't teach me how to get ready or when to start shaving or what to do with, my monthly cycle or like relationships. Still figuring that out now because obviously that is not something they were good at, so it wasn't modeled for us. So yeah, it's hard, and if they do ever listen to any of this, I hope they know that it's not an attack on them and they don't take it that way, but it is just it's the way that I grew up, and it's my storyline of my life.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's pure honesty, and they did do their best. All parents do their best. Some fall short.
No. We all fall short.
We all fall short.
Fall
you're right. We all fall short.
Which is, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
And listening to you right now, I'm like thinking about my children, and my oldest is 24 years old, and I put her through some stuff, but at the same time, like my kids, I've been married twice. In both of my relationships, my kids have never really known what it's like to have a sit-down dinner together regularly. Occasionally we might go out to dinner together, but at my house, the kids kind of fend for themselves, especially when they got old enough to like feed themselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick. I'm a freak. I have eating problems, and I eat the same damn thing every day, and nobody else wants that. Nobody wants ground turkey and avocado.
Hi, bodybuilder
Yeah.
over here.
Right.
I eat the same thing every day too. So that's
For every
but
meal.
I get what you're saying. You know, and if that works for your family, and do you have other areas where y'all sit down and talk? Like, because I asked you this question earlier too, like, can your kids come to you with things when they need to talk to you? Because I feel like when I say we didn't sit down and have dinner together as a family, I think that's the portion of it that I grieve that I never got, was like there wasn't ever a time where we talked about like deeper issues or the things we were going through, or even our achievements, or, you know, I couldn't go to my parents and talk to them. And so now later on in life, they want to talk to me, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, like now you want to know about all the things, and it's hard to navigate because I don't feel like I grew up with parents. So for them to want to be that now, it's like, well, now I don't need that. I was my own parent. So, and it makes it hard to open up to other people too, because I was so used to not just like, there wasn't even, it wasn't like I was bottling it up on purpose. It's just, there wasn't a reason to tell people things.
I can speak for Chad. I know his family. Oh, yeah, his kids can talk to him. He's an open book. They're an open book. They have that relationship. I know that for sure.
I think it's the generation, like you were saying too, though, because it was not a real big thing to speak about, like, how are you feeling today? Are you okay? You know, or things of that nature. And I wasn't raised that way either, but it is interesting because growing up in a household with anybody, you can have your siblings and the same parents, same house, and have different experiences, because obviously everyone's brain is wired a little bit differently. So how they interpret a certain situation of an upbringing is going to vary from the other. And I think that's what's kind of wild about the brain, is because it can be exactly the same, like values, morals, whatever, or kind of situation. However, two individuals experience, like, one could be very positive and one could be felt very neglected or unloved or something like that. So it's like, that's why it's tough to kind of navigate, as it's unfortunate for being a kid and feeling that you had to raise yourself. But then obviously everybody comes to a point where then once you become an adult, it's like, okay, what do you do with that? How do you get better? And how do you kind of work through those issues, so that way either you don't end up making the same kind of mistakes with your own children and continue this like generational type of unhealthy behavior, and also for you to then flourish. So the human experience is just a wild ride.
It's exactly. I like that.
Was there substance abuse at all with your family?
You know, yes and no. I really don't know with my father. I know he was like drinking, but obviously like I have no idea how much, or if it was affecting him, or how it was affecting our lives, or the fact that he wasn't really around too much. So I know that he went to jail for a DUI at one point. And I don't even really remember that point in time. I remember my grandfather telling us that, and I guess my grandfather came out to Virginia City and stayed with us, but I don't know if maybe I was at my mom's house during that time, because we used to go back and forth, but for long periods of time. But then, like, so my mom and my stepdad was a complete hippie. He followed the Grateful Dead around for years. He wore the tie-dyes, the long hair, jam band, like all of that, smoked weed. And so at my mom's house, we were allowed to smoke weed. We weren't allowed to drink. But at my dad's house, it was like, oh, you can have drinks with your friends, but no drugs at all. So then because of not checking in and us bouncing back and forth, I was really just doing whatever I wanted.
Blazing and drinking.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of that. So like I said, I felt like at the time I was having the time of my life. I got to do whatever I wanted. And then it wasn't until I got older and realized how much further behind other people, and I know it's not like a race or anything, but like literally like the day I learned I was supposed to shave, because I was at high school and I overheard some girl complaining about shaving. I was like, oh, are we supposed to be doing this now? Okay, like let me go Google it and figure it out on a little Nokia phone.
When Shane was in high school, nobody shaved though.
Bro, come on, man.
What?
It's true.
I know.
It's true. The 80s were a good time.
Ew.
80. Well, I'm sorry.
This is full bush.
80.
Ew.
Well, it was even coming to the side of the panties.
I feel stop.
No, I'm just saying.
I feel like that's seriously like for the
It's kind
Patreon.
It's kind of
chill.
coming back in.
You're allowed to say bush.
Style.
You're allowed to say bush.
I said bush.
Yeah, bush.
That's
Bush.
me.
That wasn't me. That was him. Just for the record.
How was Emily's face over there?
Emily shook her head in disgust.
In disgust. Emily's
Yeah.
just. We'll hear from Emily later.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this is not Patreon.
No, you're right. I forgot. We forgot. We're sorry. Okay, continue. Sorry, girls. Sorry, ladies.
Mark
But that's
that.
rough.
Just kidding.
It's hard. Luckily, I guess this a little of a saving grace is that you did have a sister that is it walked through kind of a similar, like you said, it's not exactly the same because you both were in different houses.
Yeah, and we have the same exact sense of humor. We have completely different personalities. She's very type A, organized, and we kind of even each other out and help pull each other to the other end of things. But I'm like ADHD, disorganized, fly by the seat of my pants, don't plan anything out, like. And she's the opposite of that. And we've gotten better as we're older. But yeah, it's interesting you said the thing about our different brains and having different experiences, even if we go through the exact same like household and everything. I was actually scared to talk to her about it for a really long time because I was afraid that she saw my parents in a different light and got a different parenting than I did. And I was like, well, I don't want to ruin that for her by like introducing something in front of her face or her eyes that she hadn't seen before. And then all of a sudden she's going through the same figure out, you know, who you are, relationships kind of thing that I am. But then it was actually recently this last year that we've always, not always, but like we've had a good relationship, but there's been years where we were just off in the world somewhere else and didn't really talk as much. But the last couple of years we talk all day, every day, nonstop. And so it finally got brought up. And I was actually really surprised that she did have the same thoughts and feelings about them not really being there. And it was such a like light bulb moment for our relationship that's like, oh, wow, okay, like we can talk about the nitty gritty.
It's nice getting a validation.
Yes.
You're not in your head. You're not crazy. You actually live this and it's real and your feelings are true.
Yes.
That's good validation.
If she was not
that's a breath of
around,
fresh air for
I
you.
think I would have lost it.
Wow. Wow, that's cool.
Absolutely would have lost it at some point, not knowing if I was crazy or not, or I don't know. But being able to like text her and be like, did you get that message too? Am I reading this right? Like is so helpful. So
how's your relationship now with your parents?
Not great. So my stepdad, like I said, the one that had been my stepdad since I was 7, he passed away this last November. And that is a whole new mess of things I'm learning about, is what to do when someone passes away and taking care of all their stuff. Thankfully, his best friends and my sister, we all get on calls together and kind of sort through that. But my relationship with my mom has been the roughest. My dad was more so just kind of like not really there. And then when I was a junior in high school, he moved to Florida, which I didn't blame him for that. Like, get out of this little town, go do things, make money. Like, I'm fine. I ended up getting my first apartment my junior year of high school.
Oh my gosh.
Which
that's wild.
I recently found out that my mom didn't even know until I brought it up randomly this last year. And
wait,
she was
junior year of high school?
Yes.
That means that what, you were 16? 17 maybe?
17, yeah. And I worked as a photographer at an old time photo shop up in Virginia City. So I'd like dress people up as cowboys and stuff. And she didn't know, and it randomly came up like a year and a half ago, and she was shocked, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like she must have thought I was at my dad's, and they just never talked to each other." So, but my relationship with my mom is very strained at this point. I haven't talked to her since the beginning of this year. There's been a lot going on with like the passing of my stepfather. They had divorced like 8 years ago and she got remarried after him. But he obviously, I wasn't going to be like, okay, well, thanks for the 15 years. Like,
Yeah.
see ya.
Yeah.
Good luck with life. So he remained my father, one of my dads. And so there was just a lot that came up with his passing. And then just a lot in the last year and a half. And she really she has a lot of her own work to do with mental health and things. And I hope she does it. But I, at this point, kind of had to give up hope that she would, because I can't, I tried to help, but obviously you can't make anyone do anything. But yeah, all throughout growing up, we butted heads. She just like wasn't around, but then she'd kind of like buy us gifts and we'd randomly have stuff on our bed when we got home. And then if we said anything or wanted something later in the week, then it was held over our heads. But then she like would go to not being around and then all of a sudden want to be like overprotective and overwhelming. And there's so many things that happened over the years that just chipped away at the relationship over and over and over again. And then we had a huge fight. I moved back to Texas in 2017 after I was in a really abusive relationship. And she was supposed to drive with me to Texas. And the night before we left, she had asked me, gosh, this is scaring me because this is stuff I haven't ever said to people, but she was cheating on my stepdad with someone in Texas. And she asked me to drive her to his house when we got to Texas. And I guess I think already told the guy that we would stay with him without even asking me first or anything. And I said no, because I was driving the car that my stepdad had bought me. And like, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you shouldn't even be cheating on him in the first place. And the only reason I knew is because I was the only one she told. And I let her kind of talk to me about it for a while because, you know, I care about people's mental health. And I felt like, well, if she doesn't have anyone else to talk to about this. And so she blew up on me when I said no. It was like, you're ruining my life. Like, you'll never amount to anything.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, you think you're better than me. Like, all the things. She lost it that day. Yelled at me for like 2 hours, shut my phone off the day before I was supposed to drive to Texas, and then didn't go with me. And so I'm like coming out of this abusive relationship with this guy. And so this was scary for me. This was like, I'm leaving everything I've known for the last 15 years to move to this new state. And the fact that I was even going to go with her kind of showed how scared I was, because we didn't have a great relationship before that anyway. And and so I ended up going by myself and didn't talk to her for like 4 years.
Oh, damn.
After that. But then her next husband was an alcoholic, and he was in AA. So she, I guess, started going to Al-Anon.
Okay.
And through that kind of ended up working on herself and mental health and all these things. And so when I saw her at my cousin's wedding, you know, years after that, we kind of like reconnected a little bit. And then started talking again, and she sounded better. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, obviously at that point, I wasn't going to like just be like, oh, hi, mom, like be my mom or whatever. But we were friends at least, and would go on trips here and there. And, but then, yeah, after that, everything started going downhill again. So, yeah.
Did she stay with that new husband? So she left him.
Yes. Really not sure what happened there. He was a great guy. Really liked him. I still, message him on holidays, Merry Christmas, hope all is well and everything. But I can't even speak to why they're not together, but
we can point a finger. I can point a finger. I'll point a finger at the mom.
Is it
just because?
I was like, is it my fault?
No, no. But I was even going to say, before she had mentioned the cheating part, that just when your mom divorced your father, your first and she had a guy 2 weeks later, that's no bueno for the kids. Forget her lifestyle. That's just no bueno. You can't bring a guy into the home after 2 weeks and the kids be okay with it. There's going to be hate and anger towards that man no matter what.
It took a long time for
Of
us
course
to
it
not
did.
date him.
I was in a similar situation. The guy that my mom brought home slept on the couch for 2 years. Like when I woke up, he was on the couch. When I went to bed, he was on the couch. Like they did not, like I had no vision of them in the same room together. And this was after him being around for he was there for 3 years, never slept over. And then he slowly got onto the couch and then they got married. You know, so it was slowly but surely.
Yeah, there was no slowly.
Yeah, man, I don't
it's
like
always
it.
just been like, hey,
I don't like it.
I'm
sorry.
Here's your new dad.
Lewis
It's
is
like,
over there wondering what does that have to do with the price of beans?
Nothing. I'm just
playing.
making my thing. You know.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people choose to go the slowly route, and she didn't. And I think it's because it's always been. It seems like it's hard to navigate, and it's why it took me so long to walk away a couple of different times, and now I've walked away again. Is because in person she's very, very sweet, bubbly, like. I think one of her love languages is probably gift giving. She's always writing little notes on things and giving people things. But then it's like, if you don't love her back unconditionally in the way that she wants you to, then you're ruining her life. And there's guilt trips and it's, why don't you love me anymore? And there was even times where we've had serious conversations where I said one thing to her and was like, hey, like you do whatever you want in your free time, but I can't be the person you go to about this stuff anymore because it's hurting me and it's bringing me down. So if you're going to keep doing it, keep doing it. And she literally would repeat it back to me and it would come out of her mouth as like, oh, well, I guess I can't go see that guy anymore because you'll hate me for the rest of my life. And I'm like, where did that even come from? And so the whole like feeling like you're crazy thing, if I didn't have my sister to be like, did you just hear that? Like, I probably would have gone crazy at one point. But yeah, so she, there's a pattern. And the pattern, I believe, is not knowing how to work through communication and work through things in a marriage. And so when things start going south, as they will in a marriage, because it takes work and you're two growing people and you have to communicate, instead of going through the trenches with the person she's married, she goes and she finds her attention elsewhere. Which isn't great because now the second stepdad, great guy, they're not together anymore. And then she moved on to a new relationship where in the new relationship, this new guy is engaged to someone else. And I don't know if that is her subconsciously picking someone that she can't get married to. So it's safe from her own pattern. I don't know what the mess is there, but that's ultimately what kind of promoted this last walking away. Is like,
Now is your mom sober?
No, she is not at all. The last time I was at her apartment, I mean, there was, tons of alcohol there. There's a bar that's walking distance from her apartment. She, the friends that she's had in the last couple of years also were promoting drinking and relationships that they shouldn't be in. And just, it's weird because when I look at like what's going on in her life and the things that she was doing and the relationship she was getting into, I've been there. I was there when I was younger. And so I recognize what's going on, but it took me a while to realize that I'm not the parent and it's not my job. She ultimately, I hoped, would have taught me those things when I was younger.
Yeah.
Not me figuring it out for myself and then having to go back and relive it through her actions and help her out of it too. And that's hard because I am a mental health coach and I am a personal trainer and nutrition coach. And so my passion is helping people. Sure. And then that's way too close to home for it to be your own parent, because for the longest time, I wanted the parent that I never had.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, if I help her with these new tools I now have, to get there, maybe I'll have the parent that I never had. And it's like, no, it's too late for that. Like, grieve the loss of the family you didn't have growing up and move on.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And that leads me to the question of like, what do you do for yourself today to continue to work on your own internal struggles to better the relationship with yourself, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, right? As we all we're constantly working on the relationship with ourselves to make ourselves better. And those are things that that we need to do for ourselves. So what are you doing for yourself to get through your own internal struggles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am still figuring it out, definitely. The last year and a half, I've leaned into my relationship with God a lot more heavily. Reading my Bible every day. Praying is huge. I pray literally all the time throughout the day. But then also taking care of my body and my brain through working out and nutrition. And then I'm really big on like podcasts and YouTube. And that was kind of my parent
Sure.
over the last 10 years is if I had something I need to figure out in my own brain, I would literally go to YouTube and type in, what do you do when this person says this to you, or when you're sad because, and like literally I would type out the entire little problem in the YouTube search bar and just listen to video after video after video of, either like coaches in the field or experts or therapists, talk about like how to work through it. At this point, I do want to get my own therapist. I travel a lot, so it's going to have to be someone online, and I want a Christian therapist. So I'm still trying to find that person. But yeah, I'm very much so a do whatever it takes kind of person.
Sure.
So as soon as I pinpoint and I'm self-aware of, I need to sort through this, I am like all in. Let's get books, let's get workbooks, let's pray about it, let's watch videos and figure this out at all costs to get through it.
Nice.
I mean, that's a solid quality to have, characteristic for sure, because the hard part is doing all of the action required to get better or achieve whatever it is that you want. But was religion anything that you just fell into or had to seek and search on your own? Or when you were growing up, was church kind of a thing that you guys ever did, or no?
So a little bit of all of that. I geek out about God's positioning and planning and everything.
Oh, for sure, me too.
I love it. So growing up, when we were really little, when we were living in Texas, I think we went to church. I remember anytime some summers we would visit my grandparents, my dad's parents in Texas, and go to golf camp and stuff. And we'd go to church with my uncle. So we were a little bit in it, but it wasn't like our parents were like, read the Bible or anything. Right. Then when we moved out to Reno, I would randomly end up at church with a friend or like different groups of people. Even when I was partying in like my high school and college years, I would like meet random friends and they'd be like, oh, you should come to church with us on Sunday. And I'd end up at church on Sunday. I wasn't like all the other kids that were like, just like wallowing in their hangover the next day. I was like, yeah, let's, and I'd end up at church super hungover. And so I was always kind of like in it a little bit. And I was obviously talking about it to an extent because like I've had a client in the past during a time when I wasn't going to church bring me a Bible as a gift. She's like, oh, because you mentioned, this verse or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't even really remember that. But how nice. So I feel like God has definitely like kept me on this little like string throughout all of life. And didn't really ever pray. But then this 2 years ago is when I really felt God just like putting all of the stops in to get me on this certain journey to get closer to him. And so I lived in Texas from 2017 to 2022. In 2022, my sister, who she has her master's in marine biology. Oh, wow. And so she works for Nampa Parks and Wildlife up in Nampa, Idaho. And if I got that wrong, sorry. Pretty sure that's what she does. But in 2022, she was living in Texas as well. And she goes, hey, I've been applying to jobs. I just landed this job in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'm going to move to Utah. And we were literally walking around Memorial Park in Houston. And I just looked at her and I was like, you want me to go with you? She was like, sure. So I was like, okay. So we just, the fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. And then after doing research on Salt Lake City, Utah for like 3 days, getting excited about moving, she texted me and she's like, hey, so never mind, by the way, we're going to Idaho instead. Cool. I was like, okay, search what we're going to do in Idaho. So that's when I was working in a gym at the time as a CrossFit coach and personal trainer. So I ended up taking all my clients online, just kind of winging it at that point on the online coaching thing. Downloaded Trainerize and was like, all right, let's try this out, and moved to Idaho. I bought a camper up in Idaho, and in 2022, 2023, I was only up there for 6 to 8 months. I drove the camper back down to Texas and redid the inside of it with my grandfather, and then started driving it up to Pennsylvania. So I ended up in Pennsylvania because in 2020, so 2 years before I even decided to go to Idaho, I was volunteering for a nonprofit called Heart Support. And they are an online support forum, 24/7 peer-to-peer support forum. I think they've changed a little bit over the years, but they used to be a support forum for if anyone wanted to anonymously post what they were going through online to receive help and encouragement from other people, they could. So it was supposed to shorten the time between someone needing help at like 2, 3 in the morning and receiving help, because it was all over the world. So they could post something, because you're not going to be able to get to a therapist at 2 in the morning, right? So if you need help, like you could go post, and the anonymous thing was cool because not everyone is going to want to put their name on the problems. Like we don't, even if you trust your family, sometimes there's just certain things that you're not willing to yet tell them, right? So I was volunteering for them in Houston, and for the COVID lockdowns, when the lockdowns started happening, I started going on the Heart Support Houston Instagram every day for an hour to just talk about like anxiety, depression, do an art project, do a workout, just talk to the people that were on there to give people a place to like talk or listen or, be engaged with each other. And the owner of that nonprofit, Jake Lurs, saw those videos from Pennsylvania and was like, hey, I'm opening a gym for mental health. I'd love for you to run the women's mental health groups for the gym. And so remotely, it took him 0 time to open up this gym. It was incredible. But he opened up the gym November of 2020. And so I started doing those classes remotely. And so by the time I'm in Idaho with the camper, I have a lot of contacts in Pennsylvania that I've met through the mental health classes, through going up there for the gym opening and the 1-year anniversary and everything. So I had some friends up there and some clients for personal training up there. So I drive the camper up to Pennsylvania, and just through, again, like God's positioning of things, like there was a guy that I was talking to up there that I was really, really excited to get up there to go see. And I just think that's funny now because like now we're like friends, but we don't really talk like that because as soon as I got up there, it was like, oh, it like fizzled out. So I feel like God like used that relationship
to get you there,
to get me excited to go up there. Otherwise, like good me being the flighty kind of, traveler that I am, I may have ended up somewhere else if I wasn't that excited to go up to Pennsylvania. So I end up in Pennsylvania, that fizzles out. I'm working there. I start dating someone else. And in that relationship, this guy looks at me and he goes, I want to be a better Christian. I was like, oh, bet. Okay. Me too. And so me thinking this relationship is going somewhere substantial, I'm like, oh, if he's going to be a better Christian, I'm going to be a better Christian. So I signed up for like 3 different small groups at the church. I started serving at the church cafe. And just got very, very involved in the church that is actually connected to that gym. So it's such a wonderful building. It's got a gym that's focused on mental health, and the church is next door.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of crossover, which is nice. But this church is amazing. It's Reality Church in Lancaster. And so through these small groups, I started going to Pastor Lindsay's Eat This Book, Reality Institute. Basically, kind of more of like a knowledge-based Bible study on different books of the Bible. And she was like, you need to pray to have a hunger for the word. And so I started praying that every single day. Well, that relationship ended. And I think through the pain of that not going anywhere, which is funny because, again, looking back on pain is so weird because it's so painful when you're in it, but then, you grow. So when you look back on it, you're like, why was that painful? But anyway, through the pain of that, I started praying all the time, nonstop, like morning to night, praying for a hunger for the word, reading my Bible every day. And that's when I just I went all in and really strengthened my relationship with God, and then started realizing that, I used to give the universe credit for a lot of the things that would happen, like, oh, the universe is pushing me this way or that way, but really it's God, like, calling me to certain things and refining me through certain happenings. So I feel like all the things that I went through growing up and in my adolescent years and, my struggles with alcohol and drugs and family and everything, like, I went through so many different things in such a short amount of time that I can help people with such an array of problems, like so many things that I can relate to and empathize with and help people with. And so it was cool in that moment of like really leaning in with my relationship this last year and a half, just seeing like exactly why he had me go through certain things and just pulling me along this like extremely crazy journey. Because when people start asking me where I've been and what I've done and like how I got to the next thing, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. They're like, how does that even happen? And I'm like, oh God. Yeah. So that's been huge for me, especially with healing from like my childhood and growing up, is just my faith and relationship with God.
Oh, for sure. You mentioned that you struggled with alcohol and substance abuse. When did that pick up for you? Like, when did that start?
So that started, I started drinking when I was like 14. We lived up in the mountains, and I hung out with a lot of the desert dirt bike racers growing up. And so we would literally go out into the mountains in the desert and just like have a bonfire, or even just out in the dirt and the sticks and drink. And we were drinking very heavily, like, the trying to be cool by like being the person that can like chug the most vodka in one go and beer bongs and all that stuff. I didn't really get into drugs other than weed until probably college years. But there's two major chapters of my life where I really struggled with it, because growing up and doing a lot of it, I wouldn't say I was really struggling, but again, like I said earlier, didn't have a lot of responsibilities in high school, so it didn't feel like it was affecting my everyday life, if that makes sense. I was still on the sports teams. I was still student body president my senior year, cheer captain, all of those things, even though I was like partying and smoking nonstop. But it was during college that then it started really, really affecting me. I ended up in an abusive relationship in 2014 to 2017 when I left for Texas. And he was a drug dealer and he was a sports bettor, and he was actually really good at sports betting. It was interesting. But I had as much weed and dabs, and, he'd sell Molly sometimes, and we were around cocaine a lot. And so it was just like always at my fingertips. I really didn't even have to like worry about the money aspect of it. And with the relationship being abusive, I feel like it was the only time I really felt loved was when we were drinking or on drugs and doing stuff. And that I feel like has been, the biggest thing for me is like wanting to feel loved and taken care of, because of how I was like raised, and I felt so alone for so much of my life. And then I think at a certain point in the relationship, it got so bad that it was just more so like, okay, I give up on trying to get him to love me. Now I'm just like numbing it out kind of thing and having fun and whatever. So I really struggled with it then. And it was weird though, because I was doing it all the time. And I struggled with it. But as soon as I moved to Texas, it was just like, I didn't think twice about it. I stopped smoking cigarettes cold turkey. I didn't like try and seek out like cocaine or Molly or anything when I got to Texas. I was definitely still drinking, not as much at first, but then as I got more integrated into the footy team and the rugby team, we were going out a lot and going on pub crawls and drinking and everything. But yeah, the first time struggling with it was through that relationship. When I moved to Texas, that kind of prompted the second chapter of struggling with it, because when I first moved there, I was happy. I had new friends. I felt great. I was like, I'm healed. I've healed everything from my past, right? Like I didn't say that, but I was happy. Like why would I need to work on that? And no one ever taught me that I needed to work on those things yet. And I basically built my life around fitness and rugby and CrossFit and Aussie rules football. And all of my friends were on the teams. And that was what I did. I didn't have any other hobbies or friends. So then in 2019, early 2019, I tore my ACL. And that was the catalyst for me getting back into substance abuse. And then that was where I really saw myself really struggling with it, to the point where it was like getting in the way of my everyday life and relationships. And thank goodness that COVID happened. That sounded really bad. I was very grateful for the lockdowns, because that made me sit with myself and figure it out. So yeah, thank God for where he put me at that time. But after I tore my ACL, I didn't have any other friends, so I was still going to the sports games, but I didn't have anything else to do but drink. So I was drinking on the sidelines during the game, and then after the game, there's always a little pub crawl or a bar we go to do awards and boat races and just tons more drinking, right? Especially if we're out of town. And so I was pretty much already drunk by the time we get there. Then I started getting into a situationship where, again, hadn't figured out relationships yet. Pretty sure this guy even told me that he wasn't going to be in a relationship with me in the very beginning. And I still was like, okay, well, we'll see about that. And went for it anyway.
That sounds similar to Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still there though.
What side?
Poor Marin.
Poor Marin. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you meant poor me.
No.
Jesus. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. So he was drinking too. We were both drinking. It was kind of one of those say I love you when we're drunk kind of relationships, but not when we're sober. And man, that got dark after my ACL tear. And I wasn't at that point, I wasn't working on my mental health. I didn't even know what that looked like yet. I was trying to be in this relationship that I wasn't wanted in. We were drinking, we were going on benders like all weekend. We would just do coke and drink and keep going for weekends at a time. Don't know how we were getting to work and stuff, but then it got to the point where I was taking like secret shots. Like we were all as a group already drinking a lot, but then I would feel the need to go to the bathroom at the bar and like get my own shot while I was going to the bathroom and then come back. And it's like, why? That was so much. And then at one point I remember I did have like one of the little vodka bottles in the console of my car. So when I got somewhere, I could take a couple shots before going in somewhere. And again, it really was the COVID lockdowns. I was working in project management at the time for a construction company in Houston. And I got put on a job out in Baytown, Texas, which is like 45 minutes outside of Houston by the Exxon plant. So I had my own little house out there. And for a while I was still driving to town, but then the lockdowns happened and I had no reason to go into town, really. And I had never been the kind of person to, I never bought alcohol for at home. It was always out in out places. So then thankfully that habit continued on where I just didn't buy any alcohol after that. And so for like 2 weeks of the lockdowns when I was at home, I did the whole like just DoorDash and watch Netflix. And then something clicked in my brain and was like, this is going to be a while. I can't keep up with this just watching Netflix and eating for weeks at a time thing. And I don't know what prompted it. No, I think it was the mental health groups at this gym. I was already volunteering for heart support. I must have started doing the hour-long videos on Instagram Live every day. And when he asked me to do those groups for the gym, I started listening to like Tony Robbins and Billy Alsbrooks all day, every day. Like I said, when I start to get into something, I dive all the way in. And through that was able to, like Tony Robbins does a lot of work with getting rid of your emotional anchors and triggers through motion. And so he helps you connect gratitude to a certain like hand movement or,
or change your state immediately.
Yes, exactly. And so I learned how to do that. I ended up getting rid of a lot of my triggers, which helped with my anger issues. And that situationship fizzled out because I wasn't going into town anymore, and I figured out that like everything I was doing was wrong. And so it completely, for months I was just listening to motivational videos over and over and over again. And that's what helped pull me out of it. But even still, I still struggled with alcohol for a while after that, in the sense that when I did drink, I wanted to drink until 4, 5, 6 a.m. Like I didn't want to stop. And so I started recognizing that in me where, if I have 3 drinks, that is going to turn into 20 every single time.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stems from, Reno's a 24-hour city. So growing up in Reno and partying in Reno was where it started, where you'd be at a bar and you would walk outside when you were done dancing and it would be daylight outside. Like there was no one in the bar saying last call or, hey, by the way, it's 6 a.m. Like it just happened. And so I think that habit just kind of carried over and over and over. So it still took me a long time after that to figure out how to have a couple drinks without it turning into me wanting to stay out like all night. Right. From the moment I was like, you know what, I wonder what it would look like to not drink anymore, to now, I mean, it was hard. I would try and go a week without drinking and it would be hard to do that. And then like I have the little I Am Sober app on my phone. And so like you can even see, I don't have it tracing all the way back to 2020, but you can see over a couple of years that like I would go a week and then drink, and then I would go like 3 weeks and then drink, and then I would go like 2 months drink, and it's still not perfect. Like I think now I'm to the point where I only drink like maybe a handful of times a year, if that. So, but it's not as much of a struggle. Last year I didn't drink from January to October, and it was easy. I didn't even really think about it, but it took a really long time to get to that point where I didn't think about it. But then when I did make the conscious decision to, okay, I'm going to drink tonight, I didn't regret it after. I had a good time. And I also had gotten rid of that part of me that wanted to keep going all night. I had a couple and then I stopped and I was like, wow, like I was so proud of myself because I finally got to that point.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
Mine and Natalie's hats are off to you because
We ain't that hot. We ain't that kind.
no,
We partied all night.
we're
Still like, hey guys, we're still up.
Yeah.
Come play.
I don't have a stop button.
Yeah.
So I had to, do the 12-step program.
Have you ever been to AA or a 12-step program?
I have. Yeah. So I've gotten I've gotten a couple of DUIs. One in 2013, and
Man, she's very close, bro.
You're
She's
close.
real close to being a full blown fucking crossing that line.
Yeah.
Being in the same.
And she's young still, but it's early.
I mean, it could still happen.
It's
I'm not
early.
saying it
I'm
can't.
saying
I'm just saying, like right now, she's still okay, but like
The box, they're getting checked.
they're starting to get checked.
Yeah.
And we say that in seriously a loving
Yeah.
manner because we're able to have caused so much destruction in our own personal lives that we can look back at the pain. Because at the time, each one of us thinking it's like, how are we ever going to pull ourselves out of this? To where we are today, where you look back at that and you're just.
I mean, we're still
Yeah.
wondering about it, but with Shane. But you know,
true.
like, you know, I went January to December last year of 2024 without drinking
Yeah.
or drugging.
Yeah.
Nice.
I went the whole year. Shane went from December to 2 weeks ago drinking and drugging. Is that what?
Yeah, 3 weeks
You
ago.
owe us a drug test this
That's
week.
fine.
Okay,
I'll do it
good.
right now.
Not right now. We're in the middle of a podcast.
I'm just saying.
But it just reminded me.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that, like on pulling yourself
Yeah.
out of that, because I believe that you could have the disease, but I also believe that some people have the disease and they never cross the line. There's a line that once that line gets crossed, there's no going backwards. There's no like Chad can't have a drink anymore. Chad's tried to have a drink and it turns into see, mine always end in handcuffs.
Mine too.
And it's like I could go out and have a drink today and then you guys wouldn't see me for 3 months. You'd be trying to find me, but I'd be, you know, shaking and dodging and ducking, and Penny'd be all up in here.
Oh, fuck.
You'd probably all be fired except for Natalie.
Oh, fuck. No, I think Penny would keep me around, bro.
I don't know,
I
bro.
think so. We got a special bond, your mom and I.
Mom?
Your mom.
But it's hard for someone like yourself that doesn't have like a strong like family support to help with the pulling out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
yes.
we are fortunate where we do.
Well, because if I like, you know, if I look at your mom and your mom's history, just a little bit that you've pointed out, I mean, she's got her own struggles, you know, and I want to identify that because I don't blame anybody for having their own struggles, right? It's and because it's tough. Life is tough. But I do give you props for working on yourself.
And doing the research.
And doing
behind
the
that
research
alone.
to find out, because you know your mom might not even have the tools to know that she's struggling. You know,
Yeah.
because the biggest sign of mental health, I mean, one of the biggest challenges, I guess, of mental health and addiction or substance use disorder is denial.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and it's until we accept, which brings me to one of my favorite sayings: when the pain, you talked about the pain, when the pain of remaining the same outweighs the fear of change.
Yeah.
People are so afraid to change, or they're so afraid to even look inward because it's a scary,
It's dark in there.
dark, painful, lonely place.
See, and I think that that's where I really lucked out with all of this. And again, like God really giving me like the perfect mixture of things to turn out the way I did, because I know I could have taken, you know, that pain or certain situations and gone definitely the
Deeper.
other direction.
Yeah.
Sure.
But like one thing that my pastor said to me a couple months ago was, we were talking about things and about last year was a rough year all around. So we were talking about that, and she was like, well, don't go just like up and moving right away. She's like, because I can tell that change is your comfort zone. So, and there's some aspects of my life where I am actually staying in my comfort zone. But my comfort zone is, as soon as I realized that I can just up and move cities whenever I want, which is a blessing, And it helps inspire other people to know that they're not ever stuck. And it helps me motivate people to be like, hey, you can do whatever you want whenever you want to. However, it's also something that I have to watch out for, because I will just up and leave the city if I get scared.
Which is a pattern of your mom, and not of your mom leaving cities, but leaving men.
Yeah.
So if you can like recognize that,
wow, yeah,
you know,
which I hadn't. Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
We will be therapists.
I've had so much therapy that I could be a therapist.
Nice. Yeah,
Therapists don't find that joke funny though.
It's not really funny at all.
I'm
joking.
I find it extremely funny.
The therapists don't
like, bro.
Therapists don't have that kind of humor. They're like,
they're like, well, you didn't. You
didn't do 5 years of school.
Go to 5 years of school, but I've done 5 years of therapy.
Well, we have life
and you're still crazy. That's what they're. Yeah. Anyway,
that ain't what they're thinking.
That's I think they might be.
God brought you through certain experiences so that way you can help others pull out of theirs, because the thing with Alcoholics Anonymous or NACA, whatever program you're in, the reason why it works is because you're amongst fellow people that understand your pain and misery, because they've done the same things, maybe not the same situational like degrees, but the deep rooted unworthy lack of self-esteem, alone, wanting to take their own life, misery, and feeling that they're unloved, they understand that to the core. So it's like, that's what is beautiful about the program, is because a lot of times you think that you're the only one, and it's not true at all.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like and that's something I learned. So when I was in my abusive relationship, the thing that clicked my brain out of it to start getting stronger to get out of that relationship was I saw a post on Instagram from a lady that was talking about how she used fitness to get stronger to get out of her. Yeah. And she described her abusive relationship, and I'm like, oh, that's me. And then she talks about how she got out of it. And I literally read that post and I was like, oh, well, if she did it, I can do it too.
Totally.
And it like changed something in me to get out of it. And so through that, I also learned that as soon as you start being vulnerable and telling other people your story, you realize you're not alone. Yeah. But when you bottle it up, if people don't know what you're going through, they can't say, oh, me too. Totally. Yeah. And then we all feel alone rather than just like laying it all out on the table and being like, this is all of me, and these are my struggles and the dark parts of me, so that people can go, oh, no way, I've done that too. And now you feel like you have connection and a bond, and that's like what really keeps you going.
Well, that's the human experience too.
Yeah.
Is that we're supposed to be amongst one another and to have that connection to some degree. And also, we always say it in like the program, is our secrets keep us sick.
Damn it, that's what I was about to say.
Oh, were you? See, and like that is huge, because there is power.
Twice she stole shit from me today. Power. Keep going. Sorry.
You steal shit from me all the time. But there's so much power when you own your own story, because then for whatever reason, I don't know exactly the scientific reason of it, but it does do something within yourself, because now you're not living in this like weird isolated shame bubble, because you've then now spoke the words out into existence, and then it relieves so much of that like anxiety and stress that we tend to bottle up and make it a lot more detriment than what it really is, because once you open your mouth and you say whatever it is, usually somebody else is like, done worse, or something along that lane to make you feel a little bit better. And
that's why the 4th and 5th step are so powerful in the 12-step programs. I would encourage you. I would encourage you to seek out Celebrate Recovery. Oh yeah. If they have that anywhere near where you are. You're right. Or they also they give that away to other churches and allow. So it started at Saddleback Church here in Lake Forest by a guy named John Baker. I believe started the Celebrate Recovery. It's the 12 steps through God, and they have it for everybody. They have it for people that have eating disorders, people that have whatever. And the 12 steps are such an amazing tool to basically clean house.
Yeah.
Clean up all the wreckage. Start to notice the patterns in your own life, and understand why those patterns have helped you for all these years, and at the same time hurt you. And then you get to see everything. It's all laid out in front of you. And the reason why I say celebrate recovery is because, one, you're Christian.
Yeah. And talked a lot about God.
And talked a lot about God. And number two, everybody is welcome at Celebrate Recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a requirement for membership. There's only one requirement for membership, and that's a desire to stop drinking. You don't even have to stop drinking. You just have to have a desire to stop drinking. So I encourage you, Shane, to go to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Sorry, that's funny.
It's not as funny as he thinks. But, I think it would be so awesome for you, with everything that you've already accomplished, take you to a whole new extra level. Plus, I mean, the opportunities and the people that you get to meet at, where do you currently live? Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour and a half.
Every time she
west
says
of Philly.
Lancaster.
Lancaster, yeah. They'll yell at you if you say Lancaster.
I know,
I
because
bet.
that's California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lancaster, California. Does anybody know anybody from Lancaster? Huh? You from Lancaster? None of you guys? You don't know anybody from Lancaster? Where is Lancaster exactly?
Bad part of town.
Huh?
Bad part of town.
No.
Where is it? You know where the armpit of California
Yeah, I
is?
do. Marin. Marin County.
No.
Yeah,
Bakersfield.
that's Marin County. I
Oh.
think.
No, it's not.
Marin County's the armpit, I heard.
No, Bakersfield.
Marin County's like super
It's
nice.
Bakersfield, right?
Super nice.
Oh,
Like really nice
wow.
and wealthy.
Wow.
That's up in kind of Northern California.
That's where Jonathan's from.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I know. Crazy. But what's crazy about your story is that this is all very recent, because we're in 2025. So you walked through some dark moments from the moment you tore your ACL that led you into probably a area that you weren't comfortable with, because now you don't have that outlet of your physical activity with sports and being amongst the team. So then that's getting kind of jumbled with your norm, and then put you kind of down like a little bit of a rabbit hole, and then infuse a relationship, and then it just kind of was off to the races. So then the biggest component, though, is it does seem that it circles back to you noticing wanting to remove the drink or the drug.
Yeah. And I know that I can kind of talk about my story now with like there's obviously so many details to all of these years of like all the things, how y'all were saying, like you check the boxes on things, because like the DUIs, and again, like I feel so lucky the way things happened. So like one of my DUIs in 2013, it wasn't that I decided to drive, it's that I got so drunk I blacked out and I woke up crashing my car. So that was a moment where, even though I didn't stop drinking after that, I stopped drinking that much after that, because I was like, oh, like if I can drink to a point of like blacking out, not remembering anything, to where I'm getting in my car and like
Totally
putting other people in danger for this, like that's not good. And I'm not going to say I never blacked out again after that, but I do realize it's a journey, and I'm definitely not over to like the complete other side of it yet. Because there's still certain things that bring out a desire to drink still, even if I've said like, oh, I'm going to go the year without drinking. Like for me, it's certain events. So I work at air shows around the country, and that's something that like as soon as I get there, like it's a big event, everyone's there, beer in the hand, like walking around having fun in the sun and everything. And so it's like it just triggers that like, oh, I want to drink right now, and I have to like sit back and be like, do I though? And I think that something that really, really helps with saying no is the fact that I am a personal trainer and nutrition coach. And so knowing all the bad things it does to my body, as well as the extra calories and what it does to your mental health and your brain. And so I've collected this huge ball of reasons not to, that I can lean on if I need to. But then I also feel like my ego has helped me out a little bit over the years, to the point where there's certain decisions I've made, or like the whole like just taking responsibility for your own actions, and like me wanting to be the first person to say, yeah, I screwed up and I'm sorry for that, just so that people can't come to me and tell me I've screwed up. And so like the little bit of my ego that's been like, do we want to do that because do you want to be viewed as someone that does that? And so even, I know ego can be a bad thing in some instances, but I feel like having one that, even in the years that I hadn't dove into like any of the reasons why on mental health, because for a very large portion of my life, up until the last year and a half, I wasn't really asking like why things affected me, or looking into my childhood for the patterns, or trying to understand it. I was just like on like the speed track of like, oh, that's bad because it does this. Okay, then I won't do it anymore. Or I will do this, or I won't do this. And now I'm finally in a season of like slowing down and digging into all the reasons why and everything. But I really do think that my ego helped out with saying no to certain things, so that I could be like, oh, well, like I don't want to be viewed a certain way, or I don't, want this or that. So,
which to me, it kind of goes into the other check box, because as an individual that we're in, do the 12 steps, and you're just slightly touching on like accountability is one of the ones that is a biggest part, is like we take ownership for our own actions, good, bad, or indifferent. But also the blacking out and doing the car and wrecking it, that's me, that's who I am, that's what I'm like, Toad's Wild Ride. So like those types of behaviors are definitely out of the norm, because we continue to potentially do that. And then also wanting others to like us, or we are so concerned with other people's judgment, when all we should care is about him and serving him, because ultimately that's the only person that really matters, because no matter what, good or bad, people are going to have an opinion on you or myself. Yes. So it's like removing that of whether or not you're going to drink or use. Who cares about the other guy? We're talking about you. What is good for you? What do you want to do? Yeah. Where it's a difficult journey, and I think it's awesome that you're so vulnerable and talking about it, because that's important for somebody else out there to hear. Like listening to your story on this podcast, and they might be questioning this, that, or the other. That's exactly what it's about, because everybody has to come to a point on their own if they think that they do or that they don't. Because you have to be willing, if you're going to go ahead and dive into the program, especially into sobriety. But it takes a courageous person, which you're incredibly strong, because a lot of stuff that you've pulled yourself out of, even a relationship alone that's abusive, is very difficult without having a support system to help you out. You figured out everything by Googling stuff. Like, that's insane. That's a huge accomplishment for you, just having some like inner dog in you. Like, you got it for sure, because we're able to take the situation without having like anybody to really help you out, like throw you a raft. You had to kind of search on your own, and that alone is amazing. So like, it's just a process of figuring out what works and what doesn't, and what fills you up completely and makes you happy. Because as we know,
inner dog. I
people,
like that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I like that, inner dog.
People, people, money, fame, accomplishments, never gonna fill you. Always gonna chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end on this note right here.
What kind of note?
Make it a good one.
Oh no, I'm just kidding.
Cue Emily.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end on this note. The definition of alcoholism or addiction is continued use despite negative consequences. Continued use despite negative consequences. The only disease in the world that is self-diagnosed as alcoholism and addiction. It's the same disease, but just depends on the substance.
But the positive is there's a solution.
There is a solution. There is hope.
Yes. Amen.
And you can call us today at no, I'm just-
Yeah. 949.
You know what's funny though? It's like somebody said, you know what I think is so cool about your guys' podcast? You don't really promote your treatment centers. And I was like, that's
The number
not,
shows up.
that's not that
The number
cool.
shows up.
And our
do that.
number does pop up throughout the whole entire podcast. If you need help,
Yeah.
call us today. Every 15 minutes. But they're like, what they meant really was we're not in their face like, hey, because we don't care if you come to our treatment center or if you come to go to another one. We just want you to get help. Not you, but Shane.
Well, and people to feel
Stiff.
okay.
Good one. I like that, Lewis. He put the camera right on Shane when I said that. It's okay, Shane. You are loved.
I feel it.
Not by me, but
No, I feel it.
by somebody.
I feel it.
So we appreciate you coming
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
to, getting
I'm excited
vulnerable
to
with
continue
us.
to watch your journey
Yeah.
and see you continue to flourish, because that's what you're doing, obviously. And
Thank
you're
you.
and
Yeah.
and the way that you're navigating everything throughout it all.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on here and giving me the space to share all of that and all the things. I hope that it does help someone along the way, even if it helps one person or sparks some new thought somewhere. So it's all about. So I really appreciate what you guys do here and collecting people's stories and pasts and all the things that people can relate to help them. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Good
I
for
like
you.
how she put that. So, collecting people's pasts. It's awesome.
Because we're all connected.
That's what we're
That's
doing.
the
We're
thing,
collecting people's
is that
pasts.
we're not
Yeah, we
these like. It's definitely a wild ride that we make up something like actually not true in our brains, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it.